Yeah, 6 also, please. Okay, and I'm titling this as Walk According to His Commandments. And honestly, this is the first time that it occurred to me to ask who this elect lady was. I've kind of glossed over this passage before in reading it in my own studies before, so I decided to do a little investigating on the identity of this lady. It was probably left purposely vague to avoid any persecution, so that's why it doesn't specify who exactly this person was. So I I just looked up looked it up on the web and looked up some of the possibilities. And so it's been suggested that the chosen lady may have been Martha of Bethany, and that's a friend of Jesus mentioned in the Gospels of Luke and John. And the name lady is actually Greek. It's Kyria, and which is the Greek equivalent of Martha. And Martha is the feminine form of the Aramaic word meaning Lord or Master. So this is the feminine form of Master. So the chosen lady was probably the head of a household. So John uses in verse 1 the Kyria refers to a woman of special status who would be the mistress of the house. It would refer to the woman in charge of assigning the work to all household slaves and managing household affairs. But in the Septuagint, the word is mistress and not slave. It's not a slave. So this woman may have been Lydia or Phoebe, a wealthy woman who hosted the church in her home and was the patroness of a local congregation. However, the consensus answer is the chosen lady is a metaphor for a house church rather than a literal woman who led the church. And that's fine if you want to interpret it that way. It could just be, because that's the principle behind it, that it's probably a house church. And the Greek word translated church or gathering or congregation is also feminine. And in the ancient world, cities were often described in female terms, like Jerusalem was described as a woman in Isaiah. And then Paul uses a similar metaphor in Ephesians 5 and Corinthians chapter 11. The children and her sister's children in verse 13 would also refer to members of two separate congregations. So, and I forgot to start my timer. So I'm probably about 2 minutes into it is what I think. So here we go. Just get that going so I don't go over. All right, so John calls this lady elect. The angel Gabriel calls Mary favored with grace in Luke chapter 1:28. The adjective is Greek, a different word from that which John uses, but it has a similar connotation. John also writes that he rejoices greatly to find some of the lady's children are walking in truth. If these are Mary's children, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is who we're referring to, they are among the 7 half-siblings of Jesus. Matthew chapter 13 affirms that Jesus had 4 half-brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. And Matthew 13 also affirms that Jesus had more than 1 half-sister. So his use of the phrase all his sisters, which suggests more than 2. So most likely it refers to 3. If it had been 2, Matthew would have written both. both sisters of Jesus. John 7 states that Jesus' half-siblings did not believe in Jesus' identity as Messiah during his earthly ministry. After the resurrection, though, Jesus' half-brother James came to believe in Jesus as Messiah, as well as Judas. Scripture does not reveal the position of his other half-siblings, but we do know that James and Judas came to Christ and accepted him as Messiah. John also says he rejoices that some of the lady's children are walking in truth, perhaps suggesting that not all of them were doing so. John comes to write that he hopes to come and talk with this lady face to face so their joy might be complete. Does anybody have a little bit of water? Because I'm getting like a little little frog in my throat. All right, so it would be fitting if John were writing to his wife or a special lady in the church, as is Lydia, Priscilla, Mary Magdalene, or Mary of Bethany. It would, however, also be fitting if John were addressing Mary, the mother of Jesus, because on the cross, Jesus put Mary into John's care. So, when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, this is one of the 7 last words that Jesus said on the cross. He said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." And then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. Now, if John wrote the letter to Mary on one of his missionary journeys, it would make sense for him to write it to his adopted mother, letting her know that some of her children were faring well and that he would soon be home. The final clue in the epistle is that John writes, "The children of your elect sister greet you." These children could, of course, be the children of the sister of any elect ladies to whom John may have been writing, but could easily be nephews or nieces of Mary, the mother of Jesus. There are clues in Scripture strongly suggesting that Salome, the wife of Zebedee, was Mary's sister. If so, James and John were her nephews and were cousins of Jesus. Now we know that John the Baptist was a cousin of Jesus. James, however, died early in the Christian era, and there's no evidence that Zebedee had more than 2 sons. Therefore, to speculate that John in this epistle is sending greetings to Mary from John's siblings is not a strong theory. So, the most likely candidate is that it is actually Mary, the mother of Jesus. So, to make a long story short, I'm going to try to bring this to a close here. So all of this would be perfectly reasonable for John to write to Mary and tell her, your nephews, James, Celeste, Matthew, and Simon also say hello. While this does not prove that the elect lady in 2 John was Mary, the mother of Jesus, it shows that there is no objection to identifying her, and that the circumstantial evidence for Mary is stronger than for that of any other candidate. So there you have it.